Joe Flacco was traded away from the Cleveland Browns to the Cincinnati Bengals. Thank God. My last video I talked about how the Bengals need to trade for somebody. Granted, Flacco wasn't on my list, but the move makes a lot of sense. Great for Joe to finally get another chance while Burrow's obviously healing up, and a good chance for the Browns to put a little more faith in their rookies in both Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. With that said, the NFL is not like other sports that during the trade deadline they make a bunch of moves. Unfortunately, players usually don't move, and that's kind of like not as fun. But these are the top 10 players that I think should be traded here with the trade deadline coming up here in the next few weeks. But before we get too much further, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit that little bell notification to get notified to all my videos here. Make sure to share this with anyone you know. We're trying to grow the channel here, so sharing this video really helps us grow, and I really appreciate it. But we're going to start with just literally a top 10 list. These are going to be players that, I think should be on the move, would make a lot of sense going to a new destination, whether it be contract issues, injury issues, what have you. This is my list. Starting with number 10, David Njoku. From Cleveland to the Houston Texans. David Njoku is in an interesting situation with the Browns because they found a great rookie in Fannin. And with Njoku being almost dispensable because he's got void years coming up in his contract, this would be a great way for Cleveland to get something for him because I don't think they're going to keep him on the roster, especially with a $24 million cap hit. This would be a great trade for a team like the Houston Texans, who haven't had a good tight end since about Owen Daniels played for the team. Njoku would bring an interesting combination of both being able to block and run routes. The blocking aspect is important because the Texans offensive line has been terrible and has not been able to give CJ a lot of time to throw, so having somebody who could block additionally would be a great benefit for the Texans, and it makes a lot of sense. The Texans have been clearing up some cap space here, so I think they could offer Njoku something at least for a year or two, see what they've got, and basically build off that, because again, another option for CJ not only to throw the ball to, but to actually have more protection for, isn't a bad idea at this point, especially because there's no offensive lineman walking through that door right now. Russell Wilson from the New York Giants to the Cleveland Browns. I know, I just said it's a good thing that they got rid of Joe Flacco to give more confidence to their rookies in Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. However, Wilson isn't going to be playing. He's not really going to be a threat, and he'd be a good voice for Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. You may not like Russell Wilson and his sayings, because I get it, they're kind of annoying, but he is a true consummate professional when you look at it as a whole, and that's a good thing to instill in such young rookies that could alter their careers. So getting him in the building, especially for something cheap as a backup option, because the Browns already traded away Kenny Pickett to the Raiders, and Deshaun Watson still is recovering from his Achilles injury. So there's not a whole lot of options the Browns really have right now. So having somebody like Russell Wilson, who could be that emergency break glass option, somebody who can pick up the offense pretty quickly. If you look at that Browns team as a whole, they're playing a lot of rookies. I think this is basically going to be a punt year for them. See what they've got in the rookies they have. Getting somebody like Wilson as a rental to just kind of mentor these young kids, I don't think is a bad idea, and I think it could really help their situation. And again, the Giants are going to look to get rid of him because why not try to get something for him? I think it would help the Browns out in the long run. Personally, that's just my opinion. Jalen Phillips from the Miami Dolphins to the 49ers. Miami is another dumpster fire. I think they're going to start shedding people here pretty soon as well. They are not very good, and it doesn't look like it's going to get much better. Phillips is a prime candidate. The Niners make a lot of sense, especially after the Bosa injury, and they could really use more depth, especially with how good they've been looking, especially because the Niners have the easiest schedule remaining, and they are going to basically be a playoff team if they keep winning games like this, so they need to solidify that defense, especially with how many injuries San Francisco's had. It just seems like San Francisco keeps getting hurt year in and year out, so getting more depth in somebody like Phillips makes a lot of sense, and again, I don't think would be that expensive, especially because Miami needs to shed some contracts. They need to start getting some capital because that team is about to be in full rebuild mode. Speaking of rebuild mode, Achane from the Miami Dolphins to the Arizona Cardinals. Like I said, the Dolphins should be shedding a lot of veteran contracts to help alleviate some of their cap and start rebuilding for the years to come because they're not competing for anything this year. Achane is a great example of somebody they should trade away. Yeah, he hasn't been in the league that long, but he's up for renewal here soon, and he's going to ask a lot of money, and they're not in a position to pay a running back that type of money. They should trade him to the Cardinals because look at what's happening to the Cardinals right now. They are injury-ridden at running back, and one of their running backs dropped a ball at the 1-yard line that could have sealed the game. An absolute heartbreaker. But that's why we don't celebrate early, kids. Putting somebody like Achane in the Cardinals backfield would help Kyler Murray in the long run. He would give him another option to check down to, and it would be a better threat than what they have now. Cardinals season isn't over for themselves, but again, they're only 2-3. They can still come back, so they should be able to trade for somebody like Achane. It wouldn't be an impossible ask, and again, it would make a lot of sense to help solidify the Arizona Cardinals team because they could re-sign him because James Conner is getting older, and Trey Benson didn't look great when he was a starter. So getting somebody like Achane to solidify that team, I think would be worth giving up the draft capital. Jakobi Meyers, from the Las Vegas Raiders to the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers have been the surprise of the season, if you ask me. I didn't expect them to be this good. I was expecting another above 500 season, but not this decent of a season from them. Aaron Rodgers looks not like, his Green Bay self, but much better than his Jets self. So I will take any form of that. That's why trading for Jakobi Meyers, I think, would make a lot of sense for the Steelers right now. The Raiders are literally in a downfall at this point. They're not competing for anything, and the AFC West is only getting better. I don't see the Raiders doing really anything for a playoff push. Jakobi was already upset coming into the season, so I don't see it being that crazy to try to trade away and get some assets for the Raiders to start rebuilding for next year. The Steelers, on the other hand, it would make a lot of sense for them because you'd have somebody opposite of DK Metcalf and give Aaron Rodgers another weapon who's a viable threat and has great hands. The cost shouldn't be too crazy. I don't think it would be too much of an ask to get a good receiver who could help Pittsburgh establish themselves as a better offense and a better receiving core for the rest of the season. I just think a trade here makes a lot of sense, so it's definitely on the list. But before we get too much further, I want to thank this video sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. The NFL season is fully underway right now, and the best place to play daily fantasy is Underdog Fantasy. All you have to do is select 2 players or more and select the higher or lower what you think they're going to do for that day. It could be anything from total yards to touchdowns, and the more players you add, the higher you can win. It's a great way to make Sundays more fun and have more fun celebrating those wins when you actually win some money. So for new customers, if you use my code TJS and play a $5 wager, you'll get $100 in bonus funds to continue playing. That's only $5 to get $100 in bonus funds. Make Sundays a little more fun, and I do videos every Saturday morning at 9:30 Central Time, so you can always join me at 9:30, ask your questions, and hopefully we'll win some money together. But I just want to thank Underdog Fantasy for our partnership and use that code TJS when signing up. But let's jump right back into the video. Trey Hendrickson, from the Cincinnati Bengals to the Detroit Lions. The Bengals are in free fall mode. Even though that they just traded for Joe Flacco, I really don't see them being able to correct the ship to the point where they're going to be competing this year. So I think getting rid of Hendrickson at this point would make a lot of sense because he's going to want a contract, and Mike Brown has proven that he does not look like he wants to pay this young man. The Detroit Lions make a lot of sense. They can play somebody opposite Aiden Hutchinson, and that defense would look incredible. The Lions started off slow, but they have looked a lot better in the past couple weeks, and they look like they could be again contenders. So adding somebody like Trey Hendrickson to their team would only improve their situation, and they'd have to re-sign him once they traded for him, so that could be a roadblock, but I think it would be an amazing fit with him and the Lions. Like Alvin Kamara, from the New Orleans Saints to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs haven't looked great this season. They look like they have honestly taken a step back. And who knows what that issue really is because they retained a lot of their team. They didn't lose too many players. They can't run the ball. With Pacheco, with Hunt, they can't run it whatsoever. Getting somebody like Kamara would be game-changing for the Chiefs. It would make sense for the Saints because they need to offload contracts because they were in cap hell coming into the season. Offloading somebody like Kamara would be a blessing for them in the long run. Yeah, you're losing a player who's a great talent, but they're not going anywhere this season. They've only gotten 1 win, and they don't look great. I think Kamara would be open to going to the Chiefs because he would be going to an instant contender at that point. He'd be able to play with Mahomes, and I think Mahomes and the Chiefs and Andy Reid would be able to utilize his skill set in a way that the Saints honestly just haven't been able to do. I think that they could make Kamara a much better version of himself. They would probably have to give him some draft capital here because Kamara is a big name, but Kamara being a pass-catching back as well as being able to run the ball would fit perfectly with Andy Reid's system, and I think he'd be a 3-down back in Kansas City, and they could get rid of Pacheco because, again, he was a 7th-round pick. He isn't costing them that much, and it'd be a huge upgrade if you ask me. It would all come down to what the draft capital would be, but again, I think the Chiefs should make a move like this because their season is starting to look very scary as of now. Breece Hall, from the New York Jets to the Baltimore Ravens. Jets are another dumpster fire. I wouldn't be shocked if they start offloading veterans as well. But Hall is somebody that they could definitely get something for, and a team like the Ravens would make a lot of sense. Derrick Henry has looked like a shell of his former self outside of week 1. He's getting older. Is he eventually going to hit the wall? Absolutely. Father Time is unfortunately undefeated. So getting somebody in like Hall who could start learning the offense right now and be a dual threat with him and Henry could honestly help save the Ravens season. The problem is we don't know how long Lamar is going to be out, and they would basically have to win out the rest of the season, which is a big ask, but something that I do think the Ravens could do. Their defense is absolutely terrible, but their offense could be something dangerous. And this trade wouldn't be exactly for just this year. This is looking into the future, you know what I mean? It's going to be an eventual replacement for Derrick Henry, but I think it would be an investment worth making for the Ravens. While I was editing, a trade did happen with one of the players I listed here in Newsome. I originally said that he should be going to the Colts. Greg Newsome, from the Browns to the Indianapolis Colts, but they decided to trade him to the Jags. Same division. Gonna count that as a win. So I'm gonna replace him with another player that I think should be traded in Kayvon Thibodeaux. Kayvon Thibodeaux, from the New York Giants to the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens have been a dumpster fire this season on defense. Their offense has been decent, but with Lamar Jackson being out, they also look like a dumpster fire. This is a punt season for Baltimore. That's why I think trading for Thibodeaux now would be a very good thing. They should basically just keep Lamar out the rest of the season, get a high draft pick, and start rebuilding that way, because it just does not look like a good year for the Ravens this year. So why trade for Thibodeaux? Because you can actually start building around him now. You can use that high draft pick to build a player around with him. The Ravens' whole identity throughout their entire existence has been defense. So the fact that their defense is this bad is kind of shocking. So they need to start rebuilding it now. Trading for a young player like Thibodeaux, who's still on his rookie deal, means they can sign him to whatever they want and basically get him for the long term and know that they have a solid player on defense. The Giants are doing much better right now. They just got a win on Thursday, so trading Thibodeaux might be out of the question, but the one thing the Giants do have a surplus of is pass rushers. So getting rid of somebody like Thibodeaux for a player in return, maybe like Rashad Bateman and a draft pick, I think would be a very realistic trade that would actually help both sides. And number one, A.J. Brown from the Philadelphia Eagles to the Buffalo Bills. A.J. Brown hasn't been able to hide the fact that he is not liked not getting the ball. It's been a rough stretch of the season for him. The Eagles also haven't really been as dominant as they've been in years past, and they just gave up their first loss to the Denver Broncos. A.J. Brown going to the Buffalo Bills would make the Buffalo Bills even higher Super Bowl contenders than they already are. They don't have an established number one wide receiver. They spread the ball around. So getting somebody like A.J. Brown, who would actually get double covered or at least the main cornerback coverage, would open up the rest of that offense no problem. It would make the Bills that much more dangerous. The problem would be, again, draft capital. How much would A.J. Brown warrant? But going to a team like the Bills would honestly change A.J. Brown's career, and I think would make the Bills unbelievable contenders for the Super Bowl. I think they would be the favorite in the AFC, hands down, and it would be a trade that would honestly be something out of Madden. Josh Allen with A.J. Brown would be amazing. But that's just what I think, guys. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments. Is there a trade nobody's really talking about that more people should be aware of? Let me know down in the comments down below. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Hit that little bell notification to be notified to all my videos here. Use that code TJS when signing up for Underdog. And until the next one, have a good one.